Hello everyone, welcome back. We continue with our video series, and this time we're going to be learning about the pawns. Okay, so remember, pawns are worth 1 point, but now it's time to learn how the pawn moves, how the pawn captures, and what can we do with a pawn. So let's go right away. Okay, now the first thing that we have to know is that the pawns could move forward 2 squares from the starting line only. Other than that, the pawn can only move straight forward 1 step at a time. So a pawn in general will move just 1 step at a time, but if it is on the starting line for white on the 2nd rank or for black on the 7th rank, then only from that starting line the pawn could move 2 squares forward. So you could see right here, this pawn could move, okay? This pawn could move 1 square forward, okay? If you choose to, but the pawn can also move 2 squares forward from the starting line. For example, this pawn from here, I could move it all the way here because this pawn is coming from the starting line. If I want to move this pawn only 1 square forward, I could push it right here as well. And that is normally how the pawn will move. Now, how can the pawn capture? The pawn captures in a small diagonal. For example, this pawn here could capture whatever piece that comes to this side or to this side. Notice that the pawn cannot move in diagonal like that unless it is to capture. If there is nothing to capture, then you cannot move in diagonal. Okay, let's continue and let's go to the next slide. Now, here you could see examples of where the pawns could capture. For example, this pawn, notice this pawn could move forward 1 square or could move forward 2 squares, but the pawn doesn't capture going forward. The pawn only captures in diagonal, a very tiny diagonal, which is right here for this pawn, right here for this one, and for this one will be like that. Okay, so that is how the pawns capture. For black, of course, black is coming in this direction. So black could capture like this, like this, like this, and like that. That is how the black pawns will capture, and this is how the white pawns will capture. Now, one of the things that we have to remember of the pawns are the following. If a pawn reaches to the end of the board, meaning the pawn goes forward, 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 and reach to the end of the board, then that pawn could turn into a queen, knight, bishop, or rook. It cannot remain a pawn, okay? Remember also that pawn only moves forward, okay? The pawns can only move forward, forward, forward. They cannot go back. They cannot move sideways. And when it's time to capture something, they capture in small diagonals, okay? And pawns, if they reach to the end, they could turn into another piece. Now, to strengthen this, I will play a little game with pawns, okay? So let me come right here to this board, and I will play a little game here with pawns to illustrate this. For example, here I could move this pawn forward. So I move this pawn 2 squares forward. Black could move this pawn 2 squares forward as well. First thing that we have to notice is that this pawn cannot, notice this pawn cannot capture this one, cannot capture that one. They cannot even move. They are in front of each other. They cannot even move. Now, if I bring my pawn here, yes, at this point of time, black could capture my pawn going this way, because that is how pawns capture. If I move my pawn here, yes, this pawn can also capture my pawn going that way, because that is how pawns capture. Now here I am in diagonal with this pawn, so I can also capture this pawn. From the starting line, my pawn could move 2 squares forward, but if I choose, I'm playing white, I don't want to move my pawn 2 squares forward, I could only move it once, okay? That is something that I want you to remember. If someone comes forward like this, oh, this is not such a great move because I could just capture the pawn. Notice now that I have a free, straightforward path to reach to the end of the board. So let's say black plays here, I move forward, black plays here, I continue going forward, black plays here, I go forward again, and now I have the option to pick a queen, a rook, a bishop, or a knight. Okay, in this case, I will pick a queen. And with the queen on the board, I will be able to capture all the other pawns easily. So remember, this is how the pawn moves, how the pawn captures, and what happens when the pawn reaches to the end. This is all for today, but now Maria Eglis is going to be going through the exercises in the book with you to make sure that you remember and know how the pawn moves, how the pawn captures. Okay, so let's go to that one.
Hi, I am Maria Eglis, and it is practice time. So let's do this practice here. We're going to practice with the pawns, and we're going to practice how they move. Okay. Here we have practice number 7. You're supposed to mark with the letter X the squares that the pawn could go to. Okay. So in some cases you will have to do 2 X's, and in some you will have to do only 1, because remember, when the pawn is moving from the starting square, it can move either 1 or 2 squares. Okay. So like this one here, it is on the square where it is starting, so it could move 2 squares. So we'll do 2 X's. Now for this one is the same thing. The same thing here with this white pawn and with this white one. It can move 2 squares because it's on the starting square. Now this one already left the square, which is the starting square, so it could only move 1 forward. And let's do practice 10. And this one can only move 1, and this can only move 1, and this one can only move 1 as well. These 4 pawns here, they cannot move because they are blocking each other. Okay, remember that this was explained already, and I guess you already understand that when they are in front of each other, they cannot move because the white pawns are going this way and the black pawns are coming this way. Okay, so they are facing each other and they cannot move. So in this point, you could stop the video, or pause it, and then do the other practice on this page, and when you finish, you unpause the video for you to see the answers for the others. Okay, you did it? Ready? Okay, let me show you the answers, okay, for the next ones. Here are the answers for practice 8, 9, 11, and 12. These are the answers, okay? So now let's go to the next page, which is the practice for the captures, okay? How to capture with the pawns. Remember that pawns capture in a small diagonal, so that's why we're going to practice on this page. Okay, we're going to practice how to capture with the pawn. Let's see. Let's do practice 13. If you notice here, this black pawn could capture this knight. So you draw an arrow towards it. And then if you see here, this pawn could capture, this white pawn could capture the black rook. And notice, remember that pawns don't capture forward, straight forward like this. So they cannot move and they cannot capture here, okay? The only ones that could capture are this one, this black one, and this white one here. Now let's do practice 16. Here, if you notice, these pawns are too far away from these pieces, so they cannot capture. But there is only one here who could capture, and it's this one. Could capture this knight. Notice, is this one who could capture these because they capture in a small diagonal, not this one here because they don't capture forward. You have to always remember that pawns don't capture forward. They capture in a small diagonal. Now you could pause the video again and do the other exercises on this page. And then when you finish, you unpause the video for you to see the answers, okay? Ready? Finish? Okay, let's go. Let me show you the answers. These are the answers for 14, practice 14 and 17. Here only one pawn could capture, and here This one could capture here, this one here, and this one could capture here, okay? Practice 15 and 18. This black pawn could capture here, this could capture here, and this could capture here. Now here, you could see on practice 18, there are 2 pawns we could capture, one for white and one for black, okay? Let's go to the last page of practice for how to capture with the pawns. Okay, let's do practice 20 together. And here we have only 2 pawns, 2 white pawns we could capture. Okay, this one here could capture the rook, and this one here could capture the knight. This one is too far away, so it cannot capture the knight, and the black pawn doesn't have anything to capture. Now let's see practice 23. This black one could capture here, and this black one could capture here. This doesn't have anything to capture. They don't capture here because they are in front of each other, and pawns don't capture forward. And that will be it. So pause the video now, please, and do the others by yourself. When you finish, you unpause it and check to see if you have your answers right. Finish? Okay, so let me show you the answers. Here we have the answer for practice 21. This white pawn could capture the queen. This white pawn could capture the bishop. They cannot capture each other, remember, because they don't capture forward. Now, practice 24, this white pawn could capture the knight, this white pawn could capture the rook, and nothing else because they cannot capture here because they are in front of each other and pawns don't capture forward, and the same thing here. Now, practice 21 and 22 and 25. On practice 22, I want you to notice something here, okay? It's very important. Remember that the black pawns are going this way and the white pawns are coming this way. And remember that pawns don't capture backwards, okay? They can only go forward and capture forward. So in this case here, this pawn could capture the rook, but this one cannot capture the rook because it will be going backwards, and pawns don't go backwards, okay? Now here, this one could capture here, the black ones capture here, and for practice 25, this one could capture here, this one could capture here, and this one could capture here, and the others don't have anything else to capture, okay? So that will be all for this video. Thank you for watching till the end, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.